Welcome to Module 3. At this point, we are moving to the next final essay for English 1301 online, and it's time to move into the slightly more complicated, yet I think ever more enjoyable area of research writing. For the past two essays, I've begged and pleaded, and most of you have, actually all of you this semester, have complied and submitted essays and all that don't have any external resources. You may have referred to stuff that you've heard in the past, but there was no need for direct quotations because it was informational that had more than passed the muster to be your own. At this point, though, we're going to actually start building in direct quotations, citations, and things of that nature because we need external forces to support what we have to say so that, frankly, we don't sound like we're making stuff up and we sound like we actually know what we're talking about. So I'm not going to go through each of these pieces because I think they take care of themselves, but I highly encourage you. Please pull up the Literary Analysis PowerPoint so that you have the notes that are contained within it. And then rather than just clicking through it and trying to guess what it is I want you to take from it, watch Literary Analysis Part 1 and then Literary Analysis Part 2. This two-part series looks at the notes that I've provided. It discusses the importance of them, how they can impact a paper about literary analysis, then kind of explain the process. The language may seem a little bit, it may seem a little daunting, but please don't make it seem that way. Don't make it be that way. I really feel that literary analysis is something that's quite simplistic. You pick a perspective, a point of analysis, and then you actually go through the process of dissecting the novel for not only how that perspective is being represented and used by the author, but why. I mean, what actually caused and motivated him to incorporate it in, and how does it impact the overall story. It's a fun little game to play, and these two videos really explain that. The tone word wheel, this is just something to bring into the consideration because I mentioned tone. I believe it's in Literary Analysis Part 2, and it just gives you a list of tones that you can use in your writing. Now, if you scroll down, you'll see the Literary Analysis essay. This essay comes with two documents attached to it. One of them is the Literary Analysis sample that is a sample essay. Let me pull it up and show you. It's just an essay, a literary analysis essay that does a pretty good job of incorporating quotations from external sources and analyzing them. I'll be dead honest, it uses a few more block quotations than I typically like to see in papers like this, simply because we're not talking about a 20 to 30 page long paper. We're talking about something that is relatively short and has no need to have that much quoted directly from it. One thing that you're going to find is that I believe the rule of thumb for citations and quoting should be you only quote what you can't say better. If you can paraphrase or rephrase or introduce the information using your own language, then take that road as opposed to any other one every single time. If it's an absolutely fantastic, wonderful quotation that just can't be avoided because, well, frankly, over several different lines of text, the author conveys something in a way that you couldn't possibly ever hope to convey on your own, then sure, include it. I think for a paper of about 8 pages in length, I think 2 to 3 block quotes is perfectly sufficient. Typically, we want to aim for most of our quotations being embedded quotes that are within the text of the paragraph itself, so they're relatively shorter in length, talking about 3 sentences or less in all from the primary source. And we tend to want to blend them in with our own language and thoughts or words and all, so that it actually feels as if it's an integrated part of the paragraph like it should be, as opposed to something that's offset that we've got to come back and talk about. One of the rules of thumb that I also employ is that there should be a 2-to-1 ratio, and this particular essay does a really good job of maintaining that. They have this exceptionally long quotation here, and then they make certain that for the most part they try and keep a 2-to-1 ratio. For every sentence or so of text that's up here, they try and provide at least one sentence or two preferably, of explanation. And there's a little bit of overlap. Obviously, this isn't a direct duplicate of this, but additionally this is block-sided. It's indented from both sides, and that will change up the ability to look at the document. But again, it does a pretty good job throughout this essay of actually incorporating these larger quotes, even though my preference is for shorter ones. So this essay kind of gives you an overview of exactly what the essay should look like. It's just a sample the student submitted before that I thought did a pretty good job. We've got another document that explains citation practices. This talks about how to do parenthetical citations in the document. This talks about how to do works cited pages. Purdue's Online Writing Lab is a perfectly acceptable source to go to for extra information on this topic. They provide a perfectly good and acceptable overview of the citation process, and it's important to note we will be doing our citations in MLA format. I realize that many of you probably are going to become majors in the social sciences or in an area where they use APA or Chicago style, because MLA is pretty much relegated just to English. But for our purposes, we're going to stick with one citation style because I want to make certain that it's something I can give you some quality feedback on, and we're all following one style, so it makes peer revisions a lot more simplistic. So look at this document for that information, as well as Purdue's Online Writing Lab. And then here's the prompt. For our next essay, you continue your argument and evaluation skills, so we're combining the skills from the first two, and move closer to the realm of the English classroom. We really haven't done that in the last couple of essays. We focused on things that are much more real-world-esque. We've looked at argumentative perspectives, which you're going to have as you go through having intellectual conversations with anybody. We looked at the evaluation process, which is something that you're probably going to face at some point when it comes to working in an industry with employees or colleagues or even students that are around you. At this point, now we move to the realm of the literary critic. You're going to choose a film, text, television, video game, anything that has a specified narrative, has a plot to it. It has the introduction of characters, a conflict is revealed, it goes through the process of rising action to climax to following action to resolution. So it follows the plot sequence structure of a typical novel, but it can be in any particular medium at all. And then well, we're going to ramp it up. So you can choose from any one of these perspectives, but it's got to fit into the scenario that I described, which is you just discovered 4 of your friends are coming into town next week, and they all have different tastes. One likes things which are funny. One prefers serious things. Another prefers drama and love. And the final person prefers mystery. Provide a critical review of one film, play, or television show, and again, I'm fine moving into any of the other mediums. The 5 of you might truly enjoy when you're all together, providing reassurance through logical thinking that the literary creation you've selected will be a winner for everyone. Is going to be tricky because you've got to play through all of those specifics, all of those areas of interest, and at the same time take into consideration your own. Your essay will be 5 pages in length, and it must include a citation for your primary source for the piece of literature you're referencing, and citations from 3 or 4 secondary external sources. To assist with the citation, see the attached document. For assistance finding research sources, this is one of those cases I'm going to highly encourage you to interact with the library at TCC, or you can use Google Scholar on your own. And give me a moment, and I'll reposition this after I get done with the rest of the specifics, and I'll show you how to set things up for Google Scholar. So to earn a score above a 0, you have to have the 5-page essay. Peer revisions must be completed with the class. A works cited page with all sources cited, 1 primary and 3 or 4 secondaries must be included, and the paper must be submitted. The 5-page length does not include the citation page. That is page 6 at minimum. 50 points for how well you address the topic, 10 points for developed introduction conclusion, 20 for use of sources, and 20 for grammar. My suggestion, do an overall introduction and then go through each individual that you're trying to persuade and explain how the particular piece you're looking at plays to their unique interests and desires and passions. And somewhere in the mix of it also include some quotations from film critics and the individuals that have helped to raise up the expectations for this film. Alright, our next particular journey point and all is going to take us to Google Scholar. So, to access this, all you need to do is go to scholar.google.com. This is Google's version of a database system that's got peer-revised journals. So it gives us a chance to go in and look at different articles and things like that, which may help us be able to write our papers using secondary supported research. So let's kind of just look. Sage Journals, you actually have to have specific access to be able to look at it depending on where you are. It's kind of locked and requires paying, so I probably wouldn't use that myself. I would be looking for articles and things that may actually give me free access. That sometimes takes a little bit of playing around, but other times you can get pretty lucky pretty fast, like this one. So in this particular one, we got an article that kind of discusses the topic. It's a relatively short piece, but again, as you can see, somewhat limited. Click full article. I can enter this stuff in and pay for it. Again, not exactly a fan. It does take some searching around to be able to access Google Scholar and get it to actually produce something that you want. Again, coming back to wanting you to pay for something. You do have the ability to go through and do some simplification of it. It's much like a database itself, in that you kind of have to poke and prod around until you find something that you really can use to the full advantage of your paper. But you find some stuff on all initial pages and stuff like that that are quite useful if you want to. I personally think that the better option would probably be to go to the TCC library page. They changed the address on me. Okay, easy enough. Academics. Scroll down. Libraries are there. Okay, so we actually want databases. I'm going to send you to the best one, EBSCOhost. It'll ask you to log in. Yeah. Yes, I have an excessively long password. Now, here's how you do EBSCOhost. Pick one option. You're going hunting for a Tweety bird. Do you use a BB gun where you can miss, or do you use a cannon and get the thing? I prefer the cannon. Mind you, there's not going to be anything left of the Tweety bird, but at least I got it. So, what I would suggest doing is select this option up here. What it's going to do is it's going to make our search every single database that is in the possession of EBSCOhost. Note, EBSCOhost is not the database. It's the subscription service. It houses access to the databases. And you select them all, continue. It is already pre-selected full text. If the professor you have tells you to select or check the scholarly peer-reviewed journals, do it. I'm not going to, because I really think that it eliminates some really valuable things. I'm going to take the same search string I had earlier. And now we wait. Alright, I kind of interrupted my search as it was going through. It normally would produce a lot more results on this one. But for time's sake, I went ahead and clicked the, go ahead and show me what you got. So in just a few seconds of searching, not even through all the databases, we have 180 different articles on the content of Grand Theft Auto. And depending on what I wanted, would be a matter of what I would choose. But when it comes to looking at documents, I've got a couple of options. I've got the PDF full text that I can look at, which is what I prefer. It's a direct scan of the article itself from the source, so I can look at how not only it was represented and what it had to say, but I can look at how it's framed, what page it was on. It can kind of impact sometimes the reasons for me choosing the source. The HTML is still the text. It's just been hand typed in, so much more simplistic. I don't think it has the artistic things that I tend to prefer. With this source, if I like it, I can email it to myself directly. I can print it out. If I want to actually save it, I'm going to have to create my own account within EBSCOhost. Your school account doesn't work. You save something with just this, it goes nowhere. You have to actually create your own account. I'm not going to go through that. My preferred method is to email it to myself, and I can access it that way. Additionally, EBSCOhost has the ability to do citations. You click the site, scroll down, there's the MLA citation. You can just come across and then copy, and you're ready to paste it. Now, I'm also a big proponent of actually going and looking at physical copies of citation guidelines, because I think it helps to stay up to date and current on what is happening within the world of MLA. Citation guidelines are changed about every 3 to 4 years. It gives an excuse to publish new manuals that students didn't have to buy, and at the same time, it's supposed to make it so that the profession is much more aligned with our other citation styles that exist. It's a lie, because we do shift back and forth, all of us. But anyway, if you come to this one, say you want to look at how to cite a database, you go to electronic websites, scroll down until you see an article in an online database, and then here's the information. The reason I think that it's absolutely imperative to go look at this information is because at this particular juncture, the citation styles and structures from years back have changed so much that MLA doesn't even look like it used to whenever I originally started using it. When I started using it, our volume issue number would actually have been 50.1, then a colon, and then you have the 2007, the pages, whatnot. There would be some more information here, and then it would have the word web and date of access as opposed to this particular DOI entry or a URL. But that's kind of the nature of the game. It changes quite frequently, so it's important to stay abreast of it. So moving back into module number 3, there's a lot to consider with that. That gives you a little bit of overview of how you can possibly find those sources that you may want to use. Please don't just go do general web searches, and don't use things like Wikipedia to help you with this. I certainly could permit one of the sources being something like, I don't know, IMDb.com is pretty good. Rotten Tomatoes is a decent one. There's some websites and all that are considered to be relatively mainstream, trustworthy places for the collection of reviews. But I think if I want something like Rotten Tomatoes, I'd probably look at the reviews and find one or two that I wanted to quote from. Click on where it actually references to their original work, especially if they're published authors. And I'd go and look at the source itself and get my information from there if I could. Otherwise, using them I don't think really causes that much harm. But it should just be one source, not a bunch of them. You shouldn't combine, Wikipedia and IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes and all of those into one. It should be a little bit broader than that. And that does bring the last point I want to put in, which is the newer the film is, the less likely you are to find relevant sources that are scholarly about the piece. It takes at least a year typically for an article to get published, if not longer. You also have to factor in time for the article to be written and whether or not the piece was even considered to be worthy of publication or evaluation in the public sphere. So my suggestions: pick a film that's relatively, at least 4 or 5 years of age. Pick something that was relatively popular, not something obscure, and be prepared to dig into a wide array of sources to be successful. I will have the timeline for this essay posted on the announcements with this video, so please look at that. And until next time, have a great one.